Hello, public opinion aficionados, and welcome to Rasmussen Reports. And today we're going to be covering this month's new thermonuclear 2024 presidential election result. And those results show Donald Trump increasing his lead to almost insurmountable numbers. But if your name is Joseph Robinette Biden, or you're one of his supporters, there's news for you in here too. Unfortunately, it's not good. Joe Biden has the lowest support he's ever had amongst 18 to 39-year-old voters. And that's really big news since they usually vote left. And make sure you hang on to the end of the video because I'm going to show you never before released numbers that to me prove exactly why Joe Biden is now losing the youth vote. But here's what we asked, and this is what you'd call a standard three-way matchup. If the 2024 candidates for president were Joe Biden, Donald Trump, or Robert F. Kennedy Jr., who would you vote for? And 36% of the electorate says Joe Biden, while 46% says Trump, a 10-point lead. 9% vote Kennedy, and 4% each vote some other candidate we're not sure. Here's the five-way matchup, and Joe Biden is still taking 36% of the vote, but Trump has actually increased to 48%, a 12-point lead. And this question most closely replicates what voters are going to actually see on their ballots. Kennedy's support slipped a little bit to 8%. But if you look at Cornel West and Jill Stein, they each take 1%. And that came entirely from the previous 4% some other candidate vote. So really, this is not good for Joe Biden. He's down to 36%, and Trump is almost at the magic 50% level. Now, I'll talk about Kennedy pretty quick for you RFK supporters. This 8 and 9% he has is pretty steady in the range that we've seen him at in the last couple of months. And I won't get into him in the demographic slides, but his best demographics are other race voters, 20%. 18 to 39-year-olds, but only 14%. Moderates at 13%, independents also 13%, and Hispanic voters at 12%. But the big news is he's now, in our polling, taking more support from Joe Biden than he is for Donald Trump. 9% of Democrats would vote Kennedy, but only 4% of Republicans. But here are the party numbers for the three-way matchup, and Donald Trump is getting 80% of the Republican vote, but Joe Biden's getting 10%. But if you look at Democrats, only 70% of Democrats say that they would vote Joe Biden today. And that's 10 points less than the Republicans who would vote Trump. And 16% of Democrats say they would vote for Donald Trump. So that adds up to a 16-point crossover advantage for Donald Trump, which is stunningly large. But check out that independent line. 44% Trump, 26% Biden. Joe Biden is only getting 26% of independents. That's an 18-point lead for Trump, which is quite a bit bigger than we've seen in our recent polling. And what's also interesting to note is that 26% of independents that are voting for Joe Biden is about the same percentage of independents who say that the country is headed on the right track and not in the wrong direction. Here are the race numbers, and there's not a lot of big news here. Trump is crushing it with white voters and absolutely getting walloped with black voters. This 61% to 21% for Trump among black voters is actually worse for Trump than we've been seeing in recent polling, but probably closer to the reality. And time will tell whether this is just statistical noise. This is kind of a small subgroup, so there is a large margin of error, or whether it represents some new trend, perhaps from all the campus protests. But Trump is still winning amongst Hispanic voters by a pretty solid 8 points. But here's what I wanted to talk about most. This is the three-way matchup by age, and Joe Biden is losing by 2 points among 18 to 39-year-olds. Now, a good portion of them are going Kennedy, and Trump only has 36% of the vote, but that 34% number from Biden is the lowest he's had this cycle. And again, 18 to 39-year-olds are usually all in for Democrats. Early in Joe Biden's term, they gave him the absolute highest job approval rating of any other age group. Although his approval rating among 18 to 39-year-olds has also crashed in the last few months. For most of his term, 18 to 39-year-olds actually gave Joe Biden the highest approval rating, but now in recent weeks, they give him the lowest of all ages. And of course, Donald Trump is winning with middle-aged and older voters too, so he's officially winning amongst every age group. And here's a chart updated to show all of our presidential polling from this cycle. The numbers for Donald Trump and Joe Biden have both dropped, while the Kennedy / some other candidate line is increased pretty sharply. But Trump has actually increased his lead over Biden. And if you look there, I drew in the margin of errors. You can see that Donald Trump's lead is way outside of him. But here's the same polling with just the 5-period moving averages. And we do this to clean it up so you can see the actual trend. And Trump has just absolutely pulled away from Biden in the last year. And Biden's numbers are only going one direction. Now, if you've been following our videos, you've seen charts like this before. And what this shows is actually the last 3 presidential races. But this one is just the 18 to 39-year-old voters, something that I've never put up before. These are absolutely fresh charts. Hillary Clinton's candidacy was a stunning success among young voters, and they never really gave Donald Trump more than 1 in 3 of their support. And it absolutely collapsed in the October and November of that cycle. But what you can see in 2020 is that Biden did about just as good as Hillary Clinton, but their support for Donald Trump increased a significant amount, over 10 points. And Trump actually pulled ahead of Biden, most likely due to all the lockdowns, except then it took a nosedive, probably because of the Supreme Court abortion rule. But this cycle, Trump is doing worse with 18 to 39-year-olds than he did in 2020. Now, a lot of that is most likely due to Kennedy, but Biden's support is way lower than it was in 2020. He finished up with almost 49% of the vote. And now in the 5-period moving averages, it's down to 40%. He's lost 9 points. What's the takeaway here? Well, in previous videos, we've shown that Joe Biden has lost Hispanic voters and kind of looks like at some point he's going to lose the black vote as well. But in this video, we're showing you that he's losing the 18 to 39-year-old vote. And in my opinion, it's probably a little bit easier to target those people with, things like student loan bailouts. But I don't know if it's going to have much of an impact, because I think I've figured out exactly why younger voters are fleeing Joe Biden. And it's the economy. They tell us that that's their number one issue above anything else. What's that, you say? Bidenomics has been a crown jewel of our country's economic history. Well, that's if you believe officially reported government statistics about the economy. And unfortunately, we here at Rasmussen Reports don't. Every day for the past 20 years, we've gone into the field and asked Americans a bunch of questions about the economy, economic confidence, their incomes, whether they're investors or not. But one of those questions is, where do they work? And one of those responses is unemployed but looking for work. We've never needed to publish those numbers, but we never had a hunch that government numbers were drifting away from reality this much. And I think when you see them, you're going to say that we're justified in questioning why the Bureau of Labor Statistics says that the current unemployment rate is 3.9%. Here they are. This is every response from the month of April. Over 9,000 American adults weighted to reflect the demographic makeup of our population as based on the census. And right there's the number, 8.3%, not 3.9%, 8.3%, and up a stunning 1.1% from the 7.2 we calculated last month. So unemployment is pretty high by historical standards, according to our polling, and up pretty big in the last month. But let's look at that age column and follow the 18 to 39-year-old numbers down to unemployed, and it's 15%. 15% of 18 to 39-year-olds with less than a 1% margin of error say that they're unemployed but looking for work. Isn't that kind of getting towards the numbers when people say that bad stuff starts to happen? Oh, wait, we had violent protests break out this month. So in my opinion, young voters is where all the action is going to be between now and November. And I don't know what those tactics are going to be yet. It sure doesn't look like student loan forgiveness has been effective at all. What do you think they're going to try next? Please post your thoughts in the comments at YouTube. And while you're there, make sure you like the video, subscribe to our channel if you haven't yet, follow us on Twitter at Rasmussen_poll, and thanks for watching.